Hi, before we move on to the allocation and assessment, let's in step 10 to check the balances of each of the cost centers so we have the right data. So to check the balance of the cost center, let's use the transaction code KSBL. You also can follow the menu path if you want to see where this function is located. So I'm going to use the transaction code. I'm already under the maintenance cost center, and you can change to the other two later. Okay, we need to check the balance one by one. So make sure you have the cost center name and the fiscal year and the period as we defined. Then execute. Remember, for the maintenance center, we are supposed to have 60,000 labor expenses total, and which we are seeing correctly here. And it's showing the primary cost is referring to the 7000, the labor expense general ledger account. So that's a primary cost. And then the cost we accumulated on the secondary cost element, the 810, 018, okay, that one we use it for allocation purpose. So go back, let's change to the other two cost center. Let's try the cafeteria first, execute. So now you can see they have two primary cost accounts related to the cost center total cost. We have 60,000 labor and 90,000 miscellaneous expense. So totally you have 150,000 cafe cost to be assessed to all of the three departments involved. That's going to be next step. And then finally, let's check the assembly department. You are expecting 150,000 labor expenses as a primary cost expense. So that's the current cost before any allocation happens to the assembly department. And now let's go back and exit from the planning checking. And now let's move to step 11. Now let's get into the most important step 11, create assessment for the cost center of the cafeteria. And for this one, I'm going to use the transaction code KSUB, or you can follow the manual path. I already created this as a favorite in my account. So for this one, double check. So you already have your controlling area, and the period is the current year from period 1 to 12. And in the initial, so this is the test run. Okay, like just leave it as it. And then click the more. We are going to create a assessment cycle with attachment. Is you are telling you in this allocation how like the formulas and how we are going to allocate the total cost of the cafeteria to all of the three departments. So click on the extra and the cycle name and create. So it's a new cycle because we have different users in this system. So each cycle should be matching our username. So I will have C018, or if you don't have it, just type. So C018, and it's starting from the first day of the current year. And then execute, and then have a memo for like the name of your cycle. Okay, I just call cycle CCCA 018 with the cycle to allocate the cafeteria cost center. And uncheck the iterative, okay, means we are not really allocating again and again, okay, just the one time. And the version is the default, and then attach the first segment because you may have different allocation method. Each segment can have a different formula to allocate the cost. So in month 1, you want to maybe use segment 1 And month 2, you may have a different allocation method, so you can create another segment. So for this one, I just call seg 018. Oh, and you can see you can have next segment, multiple segments under one assessment cycle. And then the cost assessment cost element, this will be the cost center, the secondary cost element. That's where we accumulate all of the cost for the cafeteria, the 150,000. And then I think for the remaining, I think we can keep the default. We want to allocate all of the cost incurred, and the receiving rows is variable and plan cost. Let me double check before we move on. And then on the sender and the receiver, you are. And next we get to the data input for the senders and receivers of the cost. The sender will be the total cost from the cafeteria. So we are going to use the CC, CA, and with your accompanying code. So the total cost for the cafeteria department, and that's the secondary. So the amount should be related to the secondary cost element, the 800,018 for my case. And then for the receivers will be the cost group we created before, but put that group number under the group. So not put it under the 2. Okay, so if you put it in the middle somewhere, you will get an error message later. So make sure you have the right place for the sender cost center and receiver group. And then move to the receiving tracing factors. And this one you need to change from the initial display to the plan statistical key figures. Remember, so we created that before is the employee numbers. So change it to the plan, and then the version, select only the one available. And then the statistical key figure, put your employee, the EMP 018 for mine. Okay, then you put your own EMP 0 with your company code, because that gives the SAP the total number of the employees they are going to allocate the total cafeteria cost. And then I think that's it for the cycle. So we created, and also the first segment. Now let's save with no check. Normally, when you made some mistake, they wouldn't let you save. Okay, even you use the no check option. So if you save, and they will give you a confirmation. But this one doesn't mean you have no error. So it's always something to keep AI later when we try to run the cycle. Okay, now, so once we save and back, so use the back button for 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. And make sure you save it again. And now we get into the home page to run the assessment. And if you are really not quite sure, can you do it right? Okay, let me change this twice. And you can use the test run, okay, like in the beginning, and then if you don't see really errors, and then you can uncheck the test run, then run the real assessment. So let's try the test first. So execute. And here I didn't really get any apparent error message. So I'm assuming this should be right, because if you're looking for the instruction file, you should be able to see, oh, you have 1 sender and 3 receivers. I think I got some problem with the display. I don't really see the 1 and 3 numbers, but this probably is fine. Okay, let's try to run it without the test and see the results. So go back. And now let's uncheck the test run. Right? And this will do the actual allocation. Okay, so execute. And we got the same display. And now let's check the balances after the assessment. So let's use the planning overview. So let's try see the CCCA, the cafeteria cost center. After we run the assessment in the prior step, so our expectation should be the total cost that has been allocated to the 3 departments. Remember, the assembly has 15 employees, maintenance and cafeteria, they have 5 each. So let's execute. The version should be plan actual, number 1. I think we got it correctly because you can see the allocation result. The total cost for the cafeteria is 150,000, and we are trying to divide it between 25 employees, right? So 25 employees, and then 5, 5, and 15. So 90,000 of the cafe cost will go to the assembly department. And how we can tell? Let's go to the AS, see? And then the cafe will keep 30,000 for itself because the cafeteria will also have 5 employees. And then another 30,000 will be allocated to the maintenance department, another 5 employees. So after the assessment, 120,000 of the total cost of the cafeteria will be allocated to the other 2 departments. And then the cafeteria will keep the remaining 30,000 by itself. So that's like why you see a under, like in this case, is under absorbed, means we incurred 150,000, we allocated out 120,000, so we have a 30,000 remaining because that belongs to the final cost of the cafeteria. So it's under absorbed. If in some case, okay, we allocate all of the cost to the other 2 departments, then it will be 0 for this final balance. But with this outcome, I think we did a right job on creating the assessment and creating the assessment cycle and run the assessment cycle. And then you don't really need to save, okay, because this is like a financial report. You always can run and save and print if you like. Okay, let me just exit.